Are you a Malay? Do you have EPF savings? Do you plan to retire comfortably? Well, too bad. Okay, I'm just joking, but there is a worrying finding that the Malay might not have enough money to sustain once they retire. In this episode of Sinar Specials, we are going to find out why the EPF discovered that the majority of the Malays will only have less than 20 ringgit per day to spend during retirement. The Malays will likely live off maximum 20 ringgit per day during their retirement. So I'm just going to ask you, is this true?
Well, yes and no. One is that's basically the median. So 50% is actually above that, but 50% are below that. So you will find some Bumiputera will have sufficient for retirement, but quite a lot don't have. So we have something like 16 million members. Bumiputera alone is something like close to 9 million plus, right? Half of them will be below that level. So we're not even talking about 20 ringgit. It could be even less. We actually have something like, and this is overall, we have something like 14% of members who are reaching the age of retirement or at 55, at the withdrawal age, who have less than 1,000 ringgit. And I don't want to say that this is a Malay problem, right? Because when we look at the membership in total, it's really a Malaysian problem. Because even though Bumiputera tend to have less than the other communities, even if you look at those, Malaysian Chinese, I think the median is only about 15,000 ringgit. Indians are only a bit lower than that, 11,000 or so. So even they have issues, I think, in terms of having enough savings for retirement.
Why is it happening actually? Can you elaborate a bit more on the trend?
Okay, so the reasons why people have low retirement savings. One, like I said before, quite a few people work in the informal sector. So they might be working as a salary worker for a while, in which case they'd have some contributions. But then they leave and then they go into the informal sector, they become a freelancer, they become a gig worker. So their savings doesn't accumulate. We also have a significant portion of women, especially, when what happens is that they might be working for a few years, they get married, they start a family, they leave the workforce, they don't come back. So their accumulation phase is only a few years, right? So the savings that they can actually get is actually quite low. So we end up with that inconsistency of contribution is a big factor. I think the other thing, of course, is, as everybody knows, I think salaries in Malaysia are quite low. If you have low wages, then obviously, you can't actually save so much. And of course, things have improved a little bit, I think, since we had the minimum wage in 2013. We saw a big impact on that, especially for those of the lower income. But that still leaves the bulk of people who started work 30, 40 years ago or 20, 30 years ago. They didn't have the benefit of having a minimum wage. I think the younger people, those who entered the workforce over the last 10 years, they will benefit from having that minimum wage. So we hope to see the situation improve over time, but that doesn't solve the problem for somebody who's 50 years old today.
And can I just ask a little bit more on the wages? How much does it weigh into this trend?
A lot. The median wage in Malaysia today, I think the latest figure we have is roughly about 2,500, 2,600 ringgit.
Okay.
And that's an improvement because, 10 years ago it was only about 2,000 ringgit, right? So at 2,500 ringgit, there's not a whole lot you can say. I mean, even with the kind of contribution rates that we have at 23%, it doesn't help. Just to illustrate that, if you're earning more than 5,000 ringgit today, you're already T20. Right?
Is that a good thing?
Not really. But the thing is, because people seem to think that you must be earning 10, 20k before you're T20. It's not. 5,000 ringgit is actually T20 is not that rich, to be honest. Right? A T10, I think, is just a little under 10,000 ringgit. So even if you're earning 10k, you're at the upper end of the income distribution. But that doesn't mean that you can actually accumulate a whole lot of savings or wealth.
In the study that we have seen, Why are the Chinese median saving are the only one that increases?
I think during COVID,
Yeah.
I think when you look at those who withdrew during the 4 facilities that were provided for, majority were actually Bumiputera. So roughly about somewhere between 70 to 80% of each of those facilities was actually by Bumiputera. So they started off with very low savings in the first place, but because they withdrew more during COVID, the result is the drop was steeper. So I think there were Chinese who withdrew, I think, but for the most part, most of them didn't. So that's why theirs continued to increase, while I think even Indians actually fell a little bit.
To better understand the financial behaviors of the Malays, we reach out to a renowned expert.
To prepare for the future is not characteristic of Malays. That is why often they don't buy insurance and they don't save for the future. So this of course is very bad for them, because if you don't prepare for the future, you may have to face a lot of trouble in the future. One should think about what would happen in the future and prepare for it. But Malays don't. Other people always think about the future. They take insurance, they save for the future, they go into business and the like.
But if indeed Malays would be living 20 ringgit maximum per day, what do you think will happen to the country?
Well, they will suffer greatly, because $20 is not going to buy anything in the future. Even at this moment, $20 per day is not sufficient even to buy food in today. But in the future, with inflation and the devaluation of the money, $20 will not be able to buy them even food for one day.
Given this situation, do you think Malays don't have enough money to live in the present to the point they are risking their retirement savings?
Well, in a way, yes, they don't have much money, but that it can be resolved through their adding greater skill to their occupation, so as to earn more money. Of course, initially the amount of pay would be minimum, and that would not be very much. But when you have minimum pay, you should try to live within your means, not spend more than what you can afford. If you do that, you are going to be in debt. So even if the pay is low, there are ways of spending less presently and saving something for the future.
Do you think the Chinese and Indians have more disposable income compared to the Malays?
The Malays, generally speaking, Malays do not know how to manage their own wealth, because they think that what they have is for today, to spend today. But to think about investing for the future, saving for the future, that is not a part of their culture. So they have a need to change. But at the moment, of course, they are still thinking that why save for the future? You may die in the future. But the problem is that as you grow old, your capacity to earn would be reduced to the point that you cannot earn any more money at all. So when that time comes, you depend upon your savings or your investment. But the way Malays manage their wealth is that wealth is for them to spend now, not for the future.
Given the situation is like that right now, do you think in the future Malays would be even more sidelined compared to the Chinese and Indians?
Well, if they don't change, they are going to be sidelined because obviously as they grow less able to work, to earn money, they are going to become very poor because there is no savings, there is no investment.
If they do become sidelined, the Malays, what would happen to the social well-being of the country?
Well, that will be very bad, because what will happen is that the Malays will make up most of the poor people in this country. And then poor people and rich people, there is always conflict. So they will feel very jealous about the wealth of other people, and that creates tension. So we want to avoid that.
Rezeki di mana-mana. If I spend now, there's rezeki in the future. What do you think of that? The Malays tend to think of that concept, Tun.
No, that is the wrong teachings. We are taught that things will come to us with an effort. They will come flying to us, and somehow or other, God will help them. And of course, they depend upon prayers and all that, asking God to help them. But what they miss is that even in the Quran, it says that you can ask God for help, but you must do something for yourself. If you don't do anything for yourself, you will not get any help. So that is the part that they miss out, that they must strive to achieve certain goals, so that it will be, God will give them better opportunities.
Despite the foreboding findings, EPF isn't sitting idly by and twiddling their thumbs.
Is this why EPF is coming up with the Simpan Baik-Baik campaign?
Yes, because the Simpan Baik-Baik is to put out the message that EPF can only do so much. There is a certain amount of personal responsibility that everybody of us must take, I think, in taking care of our own futures. And there is so much power in being able to save early and often, even if it's very little, because that can accumulate over time. So Simpan Baik-Baik is about sharing the stories of Malaysians who have managed to save, whatever their circumstances, for their retirement. And because the thing is, those retirement savings are so important, even if we don't get to enjoy them. Because we do have people who pass away at 55 or 60, and what we found is that those savings are enormously helpful to their children, to get an education, to build their own lives. So it passes on through generations. And I think the other thing is, of course, we want to be able to reach out to those people who are not within the formal system, right? Because you don't have that monthly deduction every month, it falls on each individual to actually save for themselves. And we're hoping to provide an avenue for them to be able to do that.
And what would you say to those who give out their opinion saying that some people tak reti simpan duit?
I would say that financial education is something that we have, and we're very interested in. We put a lot of resources in. We're working with other like-minded institutions like Bank Negara, the Securities Commission, AKPK, PNB, to help people, to educate people about taking control of their own finances, because that's a life skill, right? It's something that every one of us should actually have. I don't want to say that orang tak pandai duit. That it's also a question of, have you given them the skills and the knowledge for them to take control of their own finances? So that's important as well. Give people that sense of empowerment over their own destinies. We need to, because finance is a complex subject, and it's not something that's very easy to pick up, and it's something that I think we don't necessarily learn in school. Right. So it's partly a lack of education, and partly a lack of the ability to save. So you can't say somebody's poor at managing their finances when they're not earning enough to save in the first place, right?
Okay.
And that describes a lot of people.